I live between the world of the give a shit factor and unconscious competence. Like, I can't get you to care. John Barrows, CEO of JB Sales, been around the block for a little while here. Really, my why, if you will, is to elevate the people in the profession of sales. If you're an inbound SDR right now, please level up immediately. I think AI is going to make the good sales reps great sales reps incredible, and average sales reps irrelevant. 5 minutes before our phone conversation, I can jump on ChatGPT or any of the AI tools and be like, all right, tell me about this company, what is it all about? That when I get on the phone with a sales rep, if that sales rep isn't bringing value to me, this conversation is irrelevant. But for the vast majority of us in society, but I'll pick on sales reps, lazy as shit. So they're gonna take whatever answer AI gives it, copy, paste it into an email, into a conversation, into a call script. And at that level, I just don't fundamentally understand what the point of the human is in that equation. I'd say the 20% that figure out that and can go a little bit deeper in the product knowledge and add value almost every part of the conversation, I think those are going to be the ones that excel. I think everybody else is in deep shit.
Before we get started with the episode, our books are now open.
If you need help getting in front of the right people, finding your dream customers, or winning new business, we might be able to help.
Why not outsource your sales to We Have a Meeting? Just go to wehaveameeting.com.
JB, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jack. Hey, Zach. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to it. So obviously, JB, from one salesperson to another, I'm going to hit you with a big open-ended question. Who are you and what problem do you solve?
That's interesting. That's a big open-ended question, my friend. Who am I? I don't know. John Barrows, CEO of JB Sales. I've been around the block for a little while here. I've been doing this. I just realized I'm coming up on 50, which is a brutal realization for me. And I've been in the industry for about 30 years now. I do sales training at the fundamental level, but really my why, if you will, is to elevate the people in the profession of sales. Because I genuinely believe that this is the greatest profession in the world when done right, but the worst when done wrong. And I'm just trying to do my part to elevate the people in profession along the way with sharing some content and ideas. And also the last thing I'll say on that is, I'm not actually a sales trainer. I'm a sales rep who happens to train. I sell every day. I do all my own prospecting. I do all my own negotiations. I do all my own strategy while running my little business here. So everything that I do is real world stuff. It's not stuff that I read in a book. It's, I'm getting my teeth kicked in every day, just like everybody else out there.
That's what we love. We want to hear salespeople getting rejected left, right, and center. So if we took 100 salespeople that were struggling and we put them all in a room, what do you think they'd all have in common if they're all really like failing or struggling with sales at the moment? What do you think are going to be the symptoms of these people?
I don't know if there's a commonality, man. I have this whole 10-60-30 mentality. I did a training a long time ago and I had a bunch of reps in the room, and at the end we did a Q&A. And I share my logos, and it's Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, Dropbox, like a lot of the top SaaS companies I've worked with over the years. And one of the reps asked, John, you got all those logos, they're all pretty much competitors of ours in some way, shape, or form. And he said, so if you're going to train us all in the same content, like how are we going to differentiate? And my answer was 10-60-30. I said 10% of you in this room are going to take you what I tell you and execute at the highest level because that's the type of people you are. 60% of you in this room are going to do something different because it's easy and it makes sense. And 30% of you in this room ain't going to do shit different. So the question isn't what percentage, the question isn't how many people can I train? The question is what percentage do you want to be in? And I think mentality is a big thing. Work ethic is a big thing. So when you say 100 sales reps, I would have to distill that down into buckets who are struggling, right? And are they the ones who are the average reps who are just going through the motions and expecting the same results they got 5 years ago by doing the same shit? Well, those are the bottom 30%, and if there was 100 of those reps, I'd say you're all irrelevant at this point. If it was 100 reps who were in that 60% who are kind of the B players that were just trying to get by, I used to say you had a chance, right? Just because that's how we are as a society. As a society, we accept, mediocrity in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, I think a lot of them are irrelevant, and they don't know it because AI is coming for them faster than they could possibly imagine. The 10% is always going to be the 10%. I mean, they're always going to be the drivers. The ones I tend to try to focus on and care the most about are the ones who are kind of that upper end of that 60%, the ones who are willing to put in the work and want to get better. And willing to put in the work is a big caveat there, right? Like if you're not willing to put in the work, I always tell people I live between the world of the give a shit factor and unconscious competence. Like I can't get you to care. I just can't. I'm done trying, by the way. But man, once you do, I'll give you everything I got to get you to that next level where you don't need any of this shit anymore. So I think it's the demographics would be interesting to break that down, but I think it's pretty true to what I've seen over the course of my career here.
So we had a lady on the podcast once, who I think she was an American lady, and she said, if you can interview someone who is a failed stand-up comedian who wants to get in sales, you've hit like the holy grail. Hire that person immediately. I imagine you've probably seen a lot of salespeople share like a commonality, whether it be like some pursuit they've got in their own time or something that you think, oh, actually, you're probably going to be quite good at this. Yeah. What are those things and those attributes that you see in things that people have maybe outside of sales, transport really well into a selling environment?
Well, it's all the stuff you can't train. It's all the EQ stuff. I believe right now IQ is over. I mean, AI is already smarter than us in almost every level. So I think it's a fool's errand to try to get smarter, than, whatever. I think it's all EQ at this point. And the characteristics that I think are the best sales reps out there is genuine curiosity, like genuine curiosity. I call it the give a shit factor too. Like they actually care. Morgan Ingram worked with me for a while, and I remember when he was pretty young, he'd just been an SDR and an SDR manager. And, he came on board as one of my first trainers, and, he was doing good. He was creating cadences and he was getting results and whatever, but it kind of flattened out at a point. And he came to me and he said, John, I feel like I'm doing all the right stuff, but I'm just not getting the results I would assume to get based on the work that I'm putting in here. What do I need to do to improve my results? And I said, Morgan, one thing, your results aren't going to change until one thing does. And he said, what? I said, until you start giving a shit. And he goes, what? I go, look, I know you care about your job. I know you care about living, working here and all that stuff. But until you start actually genuinely caring about the other person on the other end of that line, and stop treating them as a cadence you have to send, an email that you have to send, a phone call you have to make, a check the box. Until you start thinking of them as like a human being that wakes up in the morning, puts on their pants like everybody else, has to get their kids to school, goes to the grocery store, has their boss yelling at them, has stresses. Until you start like thinking like that, your results aren't going to change. And so, give a shit factor, curiosity, work ethic, which I think is sorely lacking today. Like everybody wants the short term. Nobody's playing the long game anymore. And I mean, those are the three I would point to.
You mentioned AI a couple of times in passing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where do you see the intersection between the salesperson still being relevant and AI potentially just totally replacing them?
Mm-hmm. Try to stay positive on this podcast here. I think the best sales reps, I think AI is going to make the good sales reps great sales reps incredible, and average sales reps irrelevant. Yeah, I mean, again, let's pick apart the roles, right? Inbound SDRs, cut it out. Like, I'm sorry, if you're an inbound SDR right now, please level up immediately. Like, start figuring out full cycle sales because you are irrelevant, period. And I don't mean to be too harsh about that, but I do, because I've witnessed it way too many times where, I'm on somebody's website, I'm banging out with an AI chatbot who's answering every question I could possibly imagine. As soon as I raise my hand to say I'm interested in something, I get the exact information I need that brings me and helps qualify me all the way through so I can then talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. So like an inbound SDR that is, oh, I saw you downloaded the white paper. I'd like to talk to you about your 2026 priorities and how we can help you achieve your goals. And that email goes out a week after I sent in my inbound lead. Like, are you out of your mind? Right. So that role is gone. Outbound SDRs, I think those are the ones that have to level up quick to get to full cycle sales, because I think we're headed towards back to full cycle sales across the board. I think outbound SDR work is more marketing at this point. It's about touch points and intent and insights, and then feeding back to full cycle sales reps. And then full cycle sales reps, I think, need to, I used to think that full cycle sales reps didn't need to have really that much product knowledge, right? Because, they just need to be the quarterback, right? To pull the right pieces in place and organize. I actually disagree now. I think sales reps now have to go deeper in product knowledge, because they have to add value as soon as the conversation hits, because the client is going to be so much more educated now. We've all heard the stat that by the time somebody comes to us, they're already 60 to 70% of the way through the sales process, right? Well, first of all, that stat has been way overused, right? And it's been applied to everything across the board. That was inbound. So that fun, I can understand that. Like when somebody raises their hand and says, okay, I want to talk about this. Yeah, they've done their research. So we have to meet them where they are. Now, I think it's applicable across the board, outbound including. Because say I cold call you, right, and happen to pick, you happen to pick up the phone, I say something that's somewhat interesting, and we schedule a call. Ideally, I want value on that conversation right there, but let's just play the game and say I wait another couple of days to schedule a call with you. Within 5 minutes before our phone conversation, I can jump on ChatGPT or any of the AI tools and be like, all right, tell me about this company. What is it all about? How does this fit into my 12 to 20? Should I even be paying attention to this? Da, 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 da. And I can educate myself so much in such a short period of time that when I get on the phone with a sales rep, if that sales rep isn't bringing value to me, this conversation is irrelevant. And so I think they need to use AI. I think the best sales reps right now are learning how to use AI to augment, but not automate. Everybody's chasing, like the challenge I see with AI, a lot of them, but is we've gone from a search engine to an answer engine. When I say that, Google, right? Like we used to have to Google something or whatever. And we could all argue that Google kind of gave us whatever it felt like giving us, but at least there was a perception of choice, right? So we kind of had to use some critical thinking to sift through that information and say, okay, here's my truth. Let's go with that. Whereas now you go into AI and it just gives you the answer. And that answer can't be true. It can't be accurate. I mean, the number one source of AI still, I think, is Reddit, for crying out loud. So it's like, but the problem is it gives you the answer. And for those of us that are curious, that are interested, have a business acumen, it's actually a superpower, because it's like, tell me more about that. Where'd you get that? Give me a different perspective here. Why is that important? Da, 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 da. Like if you do that, now it's like my education, my business acumen goes to the roof, because I can quickly find information and challenge it and whatever. But for the vast majority of us in society, but I'll pick on sales reps, are lazy as shit. So they're going to take whatever answer AI gives it, copy, paste it into an email, into a conversation, into a call script. And at that level, I just don't fundamentally understand what the point of the human is in that equation. So I think the best reps will be even better. They'll be even more valuable. They'll make even more money, right? Because they're going to be able to use this to help clients buy. The average reps are going to use it to automate their sequences, to write better emails, to come up with a perfect script or a template to use, and those reps are gone.
We are entering a new era of outbound.
4 years in, We Have a Meeting has leveled up our entire offer. That's why multi-billion-pound brands trust us.
And we book meetings with Netflix, Spotify, Facebook, even Barcelona Football Club.
We've helped close deals up to 950,000.
We're doing it all. Phone, LinkedIn, email, direct mail. And there's a few weird and wonderful possibilities that we're keeping in our back pocket. So if you're struggling to get in front of the right people at the right time, inquire today. So you've said a few times there, JB, about adding value. I think if I scroll through LinkedIn and I spend 3 minutes, I will see a post that says, give your prospects value, add value, always be giving value. Yeah. So when you say it, can you give us some examples of what you actually mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, we could go to challenger sale, right? Lead with insights, that type of thing. And, challenger sale is always funny to me. That's like, I got myself in trouble when challenger sale was hot, right? Back in the day. And I stood up in front of a few thousand people. I'm like, could you all do me a favor and stop teaching 22-year-old kids how to be a challenger, please? Like, you just don't have enough business acumen to be a challenger, period. Like, sorry. Like, I used to sell IT services when I was a kid, right? Like 20s, whatever. And you ever try to challenge an IT professional as a sales rep and see how, like, It's adorable. They're like, oh, look at this little sales rep. He's so cute. Oh, he's adorable. And they'll let you go just long enough, give you just enough rope to hang yourself, and then they'll eventually be like, anyways, pat, 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 right? It's like, I'm sorry. So like challenge yourself, but I do think, look, let's go back to curiosity. I don't challenge people. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I've been a VP of sales. I've been a CEO. I can go toe to toe with any CRO, CEO, VP of sales out there, and I can call bullshit on any of them anytime because I've been there, done that, seen that, right? Even me, though, I still don't challenge people in that way. I challenge people by asking them questions, by being curious, by getting them to think. Because if I can get you to think, it like, you ever ask a question to somebody and they pause for a second and gone, that's a good question. And they've thought about it before they've given you the answer, right? If somebody says that's a good question that immediately answers, like, that's not a good question. They were just making you feel good. But if somebody like genuinely stops and goes, let me think about that for a minute, right? You've changed their perspective. You've added value to their life. And so that's why for me, I don't, when I send emails, like personalized emails, people take personalized, like, okay, yeah, sure, personalize your email, but if it ain't relevant, stop it. Like, I still get emails from people saying, "Oh, John, so you went to University of Maryland, go Terps," and then it hard cuts to some stupid value proposition that have no relevance to what I'm. Relevance, getting them to think, adding value. Hey, John, as the CEO of a sales training organization, how have you integrated AI into your coaching program so you can get recurring revenue after you train your clients and also add value to them on a daily basis? Well, that's a really relevant question you can ask somebody like me. And guess what? You can ask that to 50 other people like me if you want to. And it gets me to think, right? So I think A is asking better questions and being genuinely curious. B, I don't think I think it's never been easier to add value, quite frankly. And the reason with AI. So here's an example. I talk to a lot of sales trainers and influencers, whatever. And on my podcast, and they crack me up because they always say, "Oh, build your brand and get people to come to you and all this other stuff." I'm like, come on, dude. Like, we are sales trainers who sell sales training to sales reps. We're effectively crackheads who sell crack to crackheads. It's not that hard for me to build my brand and get people. And I'm also 50 years old and been doing it for 30 years. So getting people to come to me and me building my brand is a hell of a lot easier than it is for a 22-year-old kid who's working at a cybersecurity company selling cybersecurity to CISOs, right? Like, in what world is that person going to add value, right? And previously I'd be like, you don't add value, just, kind of consume their content, share it and learn from it and whatever. But now actually, I think it's easy if you're curious. Here's an example. If I was a 22-year-old kid and I was going after a 50-year-old CISO in the cybersecurity space, I'd jump into ChatGPT and I would say, I'm trying to figure out ways. I'm a 22-year-old kid selling cybersecurity to CISOs in the whatever industry, right? What are 5 different topics that I could go deep dive on and use AI to create content that would be valuable? Maybe not, by the way, not even to just CISOs in tech, but this CISO at this company based on their 10K, based on their strategy, based on all these things. What are 5 topics that I could have you, ChatGPT, go do deep research on that would bring value to that person? It'll give you 5 topics and be like, that one's kind of interesting. And then you say, could you go do deep research on that topic and put together a 3 to 5 page white paper, whatever it might be, that would speak to exactly that person's needs with no sales pitch here at all, just really something about some trends in the industry or something like that. Go do that. 5 minutes later, you have a 5-page killer white paper, if you will, tailored to that CISO that you can then share with that CISO as part of your sequence saying, hey, you know what? I've been looking into your business. I've actually done some research based on some of the trends and some of the stuff that I'm seeing out here. Thought you might get some value out of this. There you go. Not even like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about it. Like, just thought you might find some value out of this one. Like, it is that easy, and you can do it literally in 5 to 10 minutes if you know the right things to ask, the right way to prompt, and are curious enough and give a shit enough to actually want to think about that person and in a way that adds value to their life.
So, John, I keep thinking about this give a shit thing because I think it's a great mentality, and I think about like your conversation with Morgan and then I think about the listener, and the listener in my eyes now could be a 21-year-old that's selling printers. It's their first job out of university. How are you getting them to give a shit? Because at the end of the day, I said this in one of our training sessions this morning, it's not a cure for cancer. When we're ringing outbound for some of our clients, I'm like, we're selling a taxi provider. So how do you get people to actually give a shit about the other person?
Well, I think first you have to give a shit about what you're selling. Because like you said, right, like sometimes like I sell copiers. My second job was Xerox. Like, talk about a commodity. It's like 45 pages a minute over 42 pages a minute. Ooh, right? But it's, and I remember, okay, so there was an inflection point in my career where this was, the light bulb went off. My first job, so I graduated, I drank my way through 4 years of college, whatever, got my degree in marketing, got out into the real world, realized I didn't want to do this, got into sales with DeWalt Power Tools, right? That was my first job. Second job was Xerox. Third job was a startup of mine that we did outsourced IT services. And then we sold it. We were the fastest growing company in Massachusetts. We ended up selling it to Staples. And I spent about a year going through that integration with Staples, and come to find out, apparently I'm not a corporate guy. I don't have much of a filter, and I really don't like playing politics. So after a little while, Staples offered me another position, which they fired me. And so I was kind of in a panic, because I had spent 7 years selling IT services with my head down, like literally no plan B. I was all in all the time. And so when I got fired, I had this little crisis of conscience here. I'm like, shit, what do I do? I'm like, am I an IT sales guy? Is that what I am? I'm like, ew. I'm like, I don't even like IT. I'm like, ugh, I don't even like computers, right? So I'm like, what do I do? And my wife, thankfully, was the one who helped me out on this one. And she goes, okay, well, let's take a step back here. Let's take a look at every single one of your jobs that you've had. And let's ask ourselves, like, why were you one of the top reps at every single one of those companies you worked at? And so we started with we started with DeWalt. She's like, why were you one of the top reps at DeWalt? Right. And I was like, I don't know. Like, DeWalt power tools are pretty damn cool. You know what I mean? Like, they're pretty badass. So it wasn't really hard for me to sell them. She said, okay, well, Xerox. She's like, why were you one of the top reps at Xerox? I was like, I don't know. I mean, I don't like copiers, but I do believe that Xerox at the time was the best copier company in the industry, right? And she's like, well, then Thrive Networks. Why were you the fastest growing company in Massachusetts? Why did you smoke all of your competitors who had been doing this for years? And you guys came out. I was like, well, I don't like computers, but I genuinely believed that, our solution was the best. And so it wasn't really hard. And she was like, and then it dawned on me, it had nothing to do with what I sold. It had to do with if I believed in what I sold. And that opened up my lens to everything. Because now I was like, it doesn't matter what I sell. It matters that I believe in it. And I personally think that is the number one thing you need to be to have to be truly successful in sales. You can make a lot of money by being a douchebag and screwing people over and all that other stuff. But if you want to have a career, if you want to really care, I think the number one thing is you gotta believe in what you do. You gotta believe in what you sell, because sales is the transfer of enthusiasm. You know what I mean? Like, if you believe in what you sell, then it's about finding people who need what you have and then transferring that enthusiasm over to them, right? And so I think that's the key first. It's not you can't give a shit about the client until you give a shit about what you do. And you believe that what you do makes a difference for the right client, not for everybody, but for the right client. And so that's why, like, the reps who are out there who are just selling their shit just to get a commission check, they're the ones who give us a bad name. They literally are the ones why when you say you're in sales, everybody's like, ugh, it's because of that douchebag kid who's out there, the Grant Cardone assholes of the world and the Wolf of Wall Streets of the world and the Jordan Belforts of the world. There's stacks of cash and all this shit, and trying to convince people of to do things that they don't want to do. Sales isn't about convincing anybody of anything. It's about helping people solve problems or achieve goals, period. And if you're not helping, then get out of this fucking profession. Go find something else to do. And if you're listening to this right now and you don't genuinely believe in what you sell, one of two things. I know we all need jobs here, so I'm not just saying just quit your job and go, follow your passion. I think that's dumb advice. But go try to believe in it. I'm assuming that the company you work for has customers that are happy. Go talk to those customers. Why are they happy? What does your solution do for them? I'm sure you have founders who had a vision for why they started this business. Go knock on your seat. You know what? You want to elevate yourself in any organization. I don't give a shit how big it is, by the way. Go knock on your founder's door or your CEO's door and say, hey, I'm a new rep here, whatever it is. I'm trying to do my best to represent us. And could I just grab lunch with you? Could I just pick your brain here and help understand, like, why did you start this company in the first place? Like, what keeps you going here? Why do you do what you do? And you tap into why the founders created this. You'll hear that passion. You will hear that transfer of enthusiasm. When you go talk to happy customers, they'll tell you why. And then you can internalize that and start to project that to everybody else.
Our book is out now. Sales is Therapy is available everywhere for people who are looking to get better at communicating,
asking better questions, closing more deals, and bringing in more clients.
Beware, it is not for the faint of heart or for closed-minded people.
You can buy it in all good shops. Links below.
I love that. Let's stick on this then, right? So let's stick on the belief idea, the idea of helping and giving value. So this 22-year-old that's going to be speaking to CISOs, they've done the research, they've done the value. I've connected on LinkedIn. I've tried to give them the value. They're probably getting 1 million LinkedIn messages. I've done the same on email, probably 1 million. Yep. And that cell phone number's staring at me. Today's the day. I'm going to pick up the phone. I've probably got 27 seconds to make that work. What advice would you give them based on what you know about cold calling?
Cold calling. Well, are we talking Europe or are we talking the United States?
Let's go US. We'll go US first.
Yeah, because the GDPR has a big impact on that as well, as far as what you got to tell people. Here in the US, we're a lot looser on our on the contact information that we have and how we get it and all that other stuff. So we have a lot more excuses to be able to make that phone call and say, "Ooh, sorry," right? Whatever. So, but regardless, I think it ultimately it comes down to having a reason for your call, and also not looking at cold calling as an independent scenario, right? Like if you look at cold calling as a silo where it's just, I got to make cold calls today and you're just ripping through a list, I don't know what to tell you. Well, I do. So there's the quality and quantity approach. Okay. Let's talk about the quantity approach. I just brought it up. If you're going to make cold calls, I actually think making cold calls and sprinkling phone calls throughout the day is a drastic waste of time. You can't get any momentum that way. You can't learn anything that way and whatever. And you kind of have to be generic, right? So what do a lot of people do? They do power hours. It's like, all right, cool. I'm going to do a power hour. I'm going to rip a list, right? And again, good job, right? Now we're focused. We maybe gain momentum, whatever. Problem with power hours is usually people bring their list, okay? And their list is anybody and everybody who's in their territory. And quite frankly, I don't know about you, I am not bright enough. I am not that smart to be able to call a VP of sales in the SaaS industry, a director of IT in the manufacturing industry, a CMO in the financial services, and have relevant, good conversations with each of them. I'm just not that bright. So with that approach, I have to be generic. I have to say stuff like, tell me about your business, or here's my pitch, right? Regardless of this generic pitch. And that's just not going to work. But if you hyper focus on a singular persona, CISOs and financial services, whatever. Well, now I can come up with a message that is relevant to CISOs and financial services. I can come up with 2 or 3 questions that are relevant to them to get them thinking. And I might even have a case study in my back pocket to tell a story or two about somebody just like them. Then I can go to work. And then it's, hey, thanks for taking my call. Can I get 30 seconds? Not 27. That's cheesy in my opinion. But can I get 30 seconds to tell you why I'm calling before you hang up on me? Or whatever intro you want to use, by the way. And by the way, here's another tip for people, like how you introduce yourself matters. Literally how you say hello dictates the entire call. And that's something you can A/B split test. So go into ChatGPT and say, give me 10 different ways for me to introduce myself on a cold call with the goal of me keeping them on the call to hear about what I have to say. Pick the 2 that you like and test them. One of my favorites is, hey, can I get 30 seconds to tell you why I'm calling before you hang up on me, right? I usually get, oh, fine, who is this? What do you want? And this is John Barrows with JB Sales. And actually the reason I'm calling is, and then whatever that is, we're working with other CISOs in the financial services industry to show them how to do X, Y, and Z. Thought it'd be worth the conversation. Can I get some time on your calendar to have that conversation, right? Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. That way, and then if they say, well, you caught me now, kid, what do you want to talk about? It's like, oh, great. Well, you know what? I know you weren't expecting my call, so I'm going to be brief here. Do a little Sandler upfront contract if you want. Like I'll be brief here. I got like 3 or 4 quick questions about your current scenario. And then after that, I'll tailor my, tell you how I think we may or may not be able to help. And after that, you can tell me whether it makes sense to take the next steps or not. Is that all right? Sure. Relevant question, tailored value proposition, close, right? So that flow is if you want to hammer, right? My preferred state is the quality approach. I do some homework on you. I have a reason. There's a trigger event. There's some sort of relevance here. Hey, Zach, thanks for taking my call. Can I get 30 seconds to tell you why I'm calling before you hang up on me? Who is this? What do you want? This is John with JV Sales. And actually, Zach, the reason I'm calling is I noticed recently you just hired this, did that, whatever it is. And we're working with a lot of other companies who are going through that process and they're using our thing, our training or whatever it is to help address that. And I was just wondering if you'd be open for a brief conversation to have that, right? Like that reason for your call that's relevant to them, about their personalized, ideally with some research. So those are the 2, quality and quantities. But in general, also, you have to tie them to a contact strategy. You have to tie them to a story. Because if it's an individual thing, good luck with that. But if you're telling a story with your sequence, with your cadence, and calling as a part of that, well, now you can start to justify it a lot more. Because if you tell me right now I had to make cold calls and that's all I had to do, I'd probably leave sales. Because it's just not, you're just hoping for the best, needle in the haystack type of stuff. But also making cold, like the likelihood of you getting a connect right now these days, and then getting somebody who is worthwhile talking to, and then keeping them on the phone for more than 30 seconds, and then closing them. I mean, like the likelihood of that happening in today's world is, I got the data. It's like 2%, something like that these days on average. So it's hard to justify phone as an independent thing. But if you look at it as a contact strategy and part of it, look, everything is about impression points these days. So that's why I think sales reps need to look at themselves as mini marketers. That call, right? That voicemail might have, somebody might be sitting there reading it on their iPhone that pings them the memory. Oh shit, yeah, I remember that email that kid sent me. So let me go look at that. And then all of a sudden that's going to lead me to your LinkedIn profile. That's going to lead me to your website that might lead me back to you and however I want to communicate with you. We test sequences where we just do all email and then email with phone, right? So touch 3, 5, and 8 or phone or whatever it is. Same sequence, same message, same personas. When we do that, the overall, we don't get a lot of callbacks and connect rates, but the overall conversion ratio of the sequence with phone is typically 5 to 10% higher than if it's just email. So if you think of it that way, now all of a sudden you can start to justify it a lot more.
Nice. You mentioned up top there around you need to be thinking about the way you say hello. So you need to be thinking about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you made me think then there's a lot of people who might have read the Sandler books. Let's say, for example, you mentioned Sandler, so we'll take Sandler. And then they say, I'm doing the bits, but it's not really landing. Like people are actually getting pissed off at me. Yeah. They're hanging up. But then there's another guy in my team who's saying the exact same words and having the success. So what are those bits that are kind of fundamental in kind of tone and delivery that make the difference?
It's all individualized, man. That's like science and art. I think the science of sales. I've always been a science over art when it comes to sales, because I think the science lays the foundation for the art form to be that much more effective. This is why I can train all over the world, because, what it kills me about training, U.S. training is, U.S. companies take U.S. training and trainers and ship them overseas and train it the exact same way in every other culture, assuming that that's the way to do it. And I mean, first of all, the ignorance of that is just palpable, but also, different people like different, personalities. And forget about, Europe versus US. I mean, Boston versus Georgia. Like I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm about as direct and in your face as it gets when it comes to selling. I go down to Georgia, North Carolina, like I can't use that same approach down there. They'll literally kick me out of their office, right? I'll offend 90% of the people I talk to if I say what I say here compared to there. I actually got more in common with Europeans than I do with Southerners here in the United States, for crying out loud. I love Germans, for instance. They're my favorite group of people. They're as objective as it gets. There's no bullshit involved. And I love that. People think Bostonians are direct. Fucking Germans? Shit, yeah, man. I love you guys. So, that's why I think it's not about like, oh, make sure that you're happy tone. Like, fuck you. If you're not a happy type of person, don't fucking fake it. Like, should I use humor? Not if you're not funny. You know what I mean? Like cut the shit. Stop trying to be you, but you got to figure out your style. And so this is why the biggest recommendation I have is, somebody asked me if I could go back and tell my 22-year-old self something, what would it be? Number one answer to it is A/B split test everything you do. Everything. So figuring, like, let's talk about messaging. CISOs and financial services. Come up with 2 different messages to CISOs and financial services. Make 20 phone calls with this approach, make 20 phone calls with that approach. See which one yields a higher response rate. Intros. Google or ChatGPT, give me 10 intros that with the goal of, keeping somebody on a cold call. Pick the 2 that you like. The next 20 calls, use this approach. Next 20 calls, use that approach. And be conscious of it. Be conscious of testing and trying things. We're doing the activities anyways. We might as well learn from them, right? So I think that's where you start to figure out what works for you compared to the kid next to you. Now, don't get me wrong, the kid next to you might be able to pick up on their tonality and you like that and you can adopt that to yours. But if you try to mirror them and you're not their personality, it's going to act like it actually might be worse because it won't be authentic to you. And so I think authenticity is what people are craving right now. So if you can't figure out your style, this is why I used to rail on scripts. I'm like, screw scripts, turn reps into robots. I don't mind them anymore because I appreciate the fact that if you don't know what you don't know, you need something to go off of, right? But if you don't turn that script into your own or that presentation deck into your own very soon after you get certified or badged for your stupid boot camp, then I don't understand what the point is of you is. Because I could do that. I could record that and dump that voicemail in 1,000 times faster and better than you can. I can record a presentation on a WebEx or Zoom session like this and send it out to anybody and everybody. I don't need somebody to act like a robot. I need somebody to be a fucking human here. And the way you figure that out is by constantly testing and trying different things to figure out what works for you compared to me.
So when we think about founder-led sales, that's something that gets thrown around. I guess what's your take on founder-led sales versus sales teams? Who do you typically see outperforming?
Well, I mean, I think it's a tough one because founder-led sales is usually 1, 2, 3 person companies, right? Like they have to sell. The founder always has to sell first, and then they build a sales team. So I don't think you can really have an effective sales team unless the founder actually understands how to sell. And the funny thing is, I wrote this a while ago called The Founder's Dilemma, which is the perception of sales specifically from an engineering standpoint. So where it comes to is, when an engineer starts a company or builds a product, right? Unfortunately, engineers always think sales is kind of a necessary evil, right? There's always this perception that the product is that's what's great, right? The product is best, so that's why. And I understand why they have that mentality. First of all, let's go back to the transfer of enthusiasm. I could take the nerdiest engineer, like my first startup. I was one sales guy within 50 engineers. I was supporting 50 engineers. Okay, 10 of those engineers were Linux engineers. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with a Linux engineer. They're a different breed, right? They will swear upside down and sideways that they're not in sales. Ugh, sales. I ain't in sales. No, I'm not. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you are. What? No. Listen, do me a favor. Explain to me the last time you fixed something or found a bug in a software application or created something that was kind of interesting and unique. And you will watch them light up like a Christmas tree and be like, oh, the other day I was deep in this code and I found this fucking thing and da-da-da and boom, right? Holy shit, man, I need that. Like if I needed what you just told me right there, then you sold me, man, right? So that's what happens with founder-led sales is they come up with a product. They obviously have passion for that product, right? Because they created it themselves. And so what do? They go out and they talk to friends, families, and fools, like a very nice audience and a receptive audience. And they get a lot of good feedback early on. Like, man, that's awesome. They might even get a couple of sales early on because people want it. And then after that, they're like, oh shit, man, everybody needs this. Sales is easy. Let me hire a VP of sales and go to work, right? And then that's the VP of sales doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't have the passion, doesn't have the network that they do. So they inevitably fail. And then the engineer's like, I knew sales was fucking nightmare here, right? Let's do the marketing approach. And then they dump into marketing, right? And it's this game that they play. So if you don't respect it, I see very few companies fail because their product doesn't work. These days, if your product doesn't do what it's supposed to do and it's comparable to the market, you don't even get it. You're not even at the table. Okay, so that right now that's table stakes. I've rarely seen companies fail because the product market fit or it didn't work. I've seen almost every company fail because they can't sell the shit. And so if you're a founder and you don't have a healthy respect for sales and build your entire organization to support sales, I think you're destined for failure, right? And I tell sales reps all the time, I go, if you're looking for a job, look for founders that are business/sales founders, not engineer founders. Because you will always be a second-class citizen as an engineer if you're working for an engineer founder. In rare cases, like the Mark Benioffs of the world, you know what I mean, who are salespeople, right? Like that's a different story. But he was an engineer, so I think with that, I think the founder needs to understand the sales process, needs to understand and be conscious of all those meetings that they're having. What were the objections that came up? What was the process? How many times did they, who's the competition out there? Like it's actually not hard, especially now that we can record everything. You know what I mean? Even if it's face to face, just throw your phone up and just transcribe it and then dump it in and be like, hey, what are all the commonalities? What are all the objections that I'm coming up with? How long do these sales cycles take? How many stages do we have to go through to get this thing done? Who's the competition out there? And now, again, it's easier than ever if you just extract all that information, dump it into a GPT and say, tell me what are the commonalities here. Then you have a process. Then you have a structure that you can follow. And once you have a structure you can follow and stages, now you can transition that to a sales team and replicate that. Because if you don't have a structure to building out your team, you're just going to throw bodies at it and get inherently frustrated with it. So that's why I think, founder-led needs to start, right, to then build a sales team. I don't think hopefully the founder still is always involved in sales in some way, shape, or form, because it's going to keep their ear to the grindstone as far as what's happening out there in the marketplace. And they're still going to go on sales calls, but not obviously, when they're running the business, like 100% of the time. But if they remove themselves from sales, they're going to talk about market knowledge. You know what I mean? Like people spend thousands, if not millions of dollars on like McKinsey and all these stupid freaking consulting firms that are irrelevant right now to come and do an assessment of their market and go on some fucking sales calls. There's your market research, jackass. All you got to do is set up a bunch of sales calls and sit in on them and be like, what do these people like? Are these people even the right people to talk to? Like, it's not that hard. So I think that you have to lead by example in that regard and then create a structure to put people in and then test and try and go from there.
John, we've had so many different sales heads on this podcast. I could sit here and listen to you all day. You're obviously an expert and you've done the tenure. So for someone, before we let you go, for someone that's sold across multiple different decades, when you think about 2025 and the next 10 years, obviously sales as a profession, where do you think we will end up? What are your predictions?
10 years, man, I can't answer that question. I won't answer that question. Things are moving too fast right now. 5 years even, I don't know. 2 to 3 years, I think we're headed towards full cycle sales supported by true ABMs, intent signals and everything else. And EQ over everything. And so my vision for this is I got two visions that'll consolidate it, which is one is Iron Man, Iron Woman. If you think of Tony Stark, right? As a human being, he's got it all, right? He's good looking, he's rich, he's super smart, jerk anyways. But as a human, if he were to go out there and fight all these aliens by himself, he'd get smoked, right? He'd get squashed. So what does he have to do? He has to create the suit. Well, the suit was cool, but I don't know if you remember that first Iron Man. It was the big clunky thing and it blew up in the desert and the whole thing, right? He didn't really become Iron Man until he added Jarvis. So now, think like SalesLoft Outreach, something like that, like as the suit, or Salesforce as the suit, and then AI added. So now you have the human, the tech, the suit, and the AI. Now you can go out there and whoop some ass. Because I think as long as humans are buying things, this is why I can't say anything past 2 or 3 years. My fear isn't all the AI stuff that is coming to automate sales and all this. That's not my fear. Like I used to be, I was like, holy shit, this stuff's coming fast, right? I don't care about any of that stuff right now. What I care about more is when the client wakes up and realizes they don't need us. And for anybody listening to this right now, if you don't think you're in trouble, go into pick your AI and act as a potential customer for your solution. For me, I would say something like, I'm a VP of sales at a 50-person sales team. I have 20 SDRs. I have 38 Es. I'm looking at sales training for prospecting for my team. And I'm looking at the JB sales training. What do I need to know about the JB sales training? What are the pros and cons? How does he compare against the other 3 vendors in G2? And what are some questions I should ask the rep to make sure, and literally when you realize in 5 minutes, you get more value out of some dipshit little 22-year-old kid who's going to ask you BANT questions and then wait a week to set up a call with an AE who's going to ask you more same questions and then give you a drone through a piece of shit demo, and then wait another week for an SE who's probably going to give you the value but ask you the same stupid questions because none of that's coordinated. When you realize that, you realize how much trouble we're in. So if you don't become the Iron Man of sales or the Iron Woman of sales, you're irrelevant. The other image that I have is, I don't know if you've seen the movie Minority Report. So with Tom Hanks, right? Or Tom Cruise. There's a scene in there where he's standing in front of this huge board, right? With these gloves on, and he's just kind of like swiping stuff back and forth and like throwing things here and there. That's kind of where I see sales, is I think we are going to be sitting in front of a dashboard, pick a solution. I don't know which one's going to win. And instead of me thinking about like, who should I call today, right? Or what cadence should I run today? It's going to be like, oh no, John, you need to call Jack. And because Jack and his company just did this, he just posted about that, and his business is doing X, Y, Z, and his industry is going in this direction. And by the way, he likes phone over email because of his personality traits, because we were able to do that with like a tool like Crystal Knows or something like that. And here's 2 or 3 talking points. And it'll make the call. And then we'll have the conversation. We'll transcribe the entire conversation, dump it into CRM so I don't have to worry about that, and schedule next steps. And then I'll be on to the next one. So that's where I think sales is going to be, right? So that's why I think the 20% or the 10%, I'll stretch it out to Pareto's rule, 80-20. And say the 20% that figure out that and can go a little bit deeper in the product knowledge and add value almost every part of the conversation, and then get all that information here. I think those are going to be the ones that excel. I think everybody else is in deep shit.
I want to say I'm excited to see where it ends, but I'm also terrified.
I'm terrified. Well, here's the deal. I'm excited to see what I can do with it, because I know I'm genuinely curious. I know I have business acumen, and I know I can outwork anybody out there. So I think for somebody like me, the future is a lot brighter. I don't want to say bright. It's a lot brighter. I am terrified for the average anybody. Terrified, because I don't see how this doesn't, like, people say, oh, it's just like any other technology and it's going to displace some jobs because they're going to create some jobs. Like, wrong, in my opinion. I graduated in 98. I was before the internet. You know what I mean? But I was a computer lab at my college. So I saw computers come out. I saw dial-up go to DSL and fast internet. I saw the iPhone hit, every one of those technical advances was like, all right, cool. Like, it was a nice little holy shit. Yeah, this is crazy. But hey, we're displacing these jobs and we're creating new ones. This is like a hockey stick shit. None of those technologies learned on top of itself. None of those, like, literally AI is as dumb as it's ever going to be in this moment right now as we're talking. Like, 3 seconds from this conversation, it's going to get smarter and better and faster and better. And so to me, that, like, all these people is like, oh, history, shut up. History never had something like this. And so that's why I think if you are not on this train right now, you might as well just unplug and go live on a beach somewhere in Costa Rica, which is where I'm going in 3 years. So my daughter's graduating 4 years. Like, she's a sophomore in college. I'm sorry, she's a sophomore in high school. She's got 3 more years until she graduates high school. After that, my wife and I are cashing out. I'll see you down in Costa Rica. I got a house down in Playa Potrero. If anybody wants to join me, might do a little sales ecosystem down there where you can come down and hang out and surf and smoke some weed and, talk sales if you want to. That's where I'm going to be in about 3 or 4 years, though. So that's about as far as out as I can see, my friends.
I'll see you there. We typically at this point of the conversation say, if people want to find you or get in touch, how can they do that? Just head down to Costa Rica in 3 years.
Yeah, just find me down there, man. I'll make it easy. No. Yeah, I mean, the easiest is obviously the website, right? jbarrows.com. On there, you'll see on the resources section, you got my Make It Happen Monday podcast. I just launched, so I do corporate training, obviously, if anybody's interested, but I also do individual training. All my stuff is in my on-demand portal for $420 a year. You get everything that I got. And then I just launched a one-on-one coaching program where for those people that give a shit, those top into that 60% that are willing to put in the work with them for 3 months to get them to that next level. So if anybody wants to hit me up. And the last one for free consulting, YouTube channel has a ton of free shit on it. But also, if anybody's looking for some free consulting or tips or whatever, just hit me up on Instagram. That's where I answer any question that anybody has. All you got to do is DM me with a video and be like, hey, John, I'm struggling with this, and I'll get right back to you. My handle on that is John, John, M as in Michael, Barrows, Barrows. And yeah, so those are the places you can find me.
Thank you so much for joining us, John.
Yeah, thanks for having me.